What's up, guys? Today's video we're going to cover 9 new country albums, including stuff from the artists formerly known as the Dixie Chicks, Brett Eldredge. We're going to have some indie stuff in here. It's all timestamped down below. Some of y'all never look at the description. And YouTube's got that cool new scrub function, so you can just see like what albums I'm talking about. I know some of you guys like more dedicated videos for individual albums, and it just is what it is this time around. I moved this month, this is the music I've been listening to, and hey, something's better than nothing. I also have my Spotify playlist linked in the description down below, and throughout the year, as I hear songs on albums that I enjoy, I just throw them onto that playlist. And generally, there's at least one song I really like from an album that usually makes it onto that list. So check it out if you're interested, and now let's do some reviews. First up is Brett Eldredge with Sunday Drive.
Let it keep spinning on my way. I gotta feel it.
I was super surprised by this album. Brett Eldredge is someone that I first found out about with his song Don't Ya, and he's just kind of been one of these guys that has hits on country radio, but I'm not really passionate about his output as an artist because it never felt especially individual. That has completely changed for me with this album Sunday Drive. It feels so inspired, it feels so different, it feels like an expression that's coming from an individual that's living out in Chicago and wants to reflect on his hometown and his place in life.
Was it your heart or mine? Or was it just the wrong time, Gabrielle?
This is an album that feels really comfortable in its own skin, and it's a real vocal showcase for Brett Eldredge. I mean, there's a lot of times where he's kind of crooning on this and he'll kind of growl in some bigger notes and you're like, damn man, you can really sing, and it just makes you take a second look.
But that don't mean I don't go back there in my mind.
Brett worked with Daniel Tashian and Ian Fitchuk, the duo that is most famous for working on Casey Musgrave's Golden Hour, and they also worked on Little Big Town's new album Nightfall earlier this year, but whereas that one I felt like leaned too hard into that kind of dreamy, cosmic feel, and it made the whole album feel really sleepy. This time around it still feels smooth, but it feels more grounded and rootsy and acoustic, and it has such an enjoyable kind of 1970s vibe about it. In all the different vibes of this album, it stays really pleasant. Magnolia's got a kind of rollicking energy. The album closer, Paris, Illinois, is just a beautiful, stark song. And the title track is a real tearjerker where Brett Eldredge is reflecting on being in the backseat as his parents kind of cruised around on a Sunday. But now he's an adult, they're older, and he's driving them around. And I mean, damn, the passage of time, it'll get you in your soul. This is one of the most pleasant surprises I've encountered in a long time. I love seeing an artist really do what they want and go after a singular vision instead of just kind of chase a trend. This feels so cool to me. I'm giving it a big yeehaw. Then I want to talk about a new to me artist named Tessy Lou Williams and her self-titled album.
I took a jump here, waiting tables met, what a change it feels.
I don't even really remember how Tessy Lou got on my radar, but she hails from Montana. Now she lives in Texas, and she has made this breakup album that is completely gorgeous and worth your listening to. There are some stunning songs on this, stuff like Pathway of Teardrops.
A pathway of teardrops.
There's another one called Mountain Time in Memphis about kind of leaving a guy in Missoula, Montana, and her mindset is still stuck there even though she's a waitress now in Tennessee.
'Cause it's still mountain time in Memphis.
And then my favorite track on the record is actually one she didn't write, but it's called Why Do I Still Want You? And it's got this religious tinge to it where it's quoting Psalm 23 where it says, if the Lord is my shepherd and I shall not want, then why do I still want you? She's got a taste for things that balance kind of loneliness and sweetness really well like that. But a huge yeehaw to that record, you should definitely check it out. Then we got the new album from Gabby Barrett called Goldmine.
Tell me what did I do? Something I do for you alone.
Gabby Barrett came from American Idol. She did not win the show, but she has hustled and turned her career into a very buzzy one from the exposure she got from Idol. Her song, I Hope, is not just a smash in the country world, it has really crossed over to pop. It's kind of a Before He Cheats vindictive anthem for a new generation, and it has led to the release of her debut album, Goldmine. I really dislike the cover of this album. I feel like that outfit is somehow both like really tight and frumpy at the same time, and then it's just like futuristic and disco-y for no reason. But to me, that's kind of indicative of the content of the album too, which I would say is scattered and all over the place.
He knows just where he's going and he's proud of where he's from.
Sometimes this is a naughty R&B record on songs like I Hope. Other times it's this like very explicitly Christian album and she's singing about her love of Jesus on these very plaintive ballads. And then other times it's a real country rock vibe on songs like Jesus and My Mama, which I think is definitely my favorite track on this. I think she's someone that, much like Jason Aldean, is savvy enough to make the kind of R&B, but definitely sounds most engaged on rock songs. I greatly dislike the production on this album, which I would just describe as loud. I do not think that these songs breathe, and that might make them very playlistable. They're loud, they're poppy, and maybe they're just good to have on in the background, but when it comes to just sitting and listening to the album, I'm like, damn, can you just turn it down sometimes? Can we not yell every vocal? Can we just have less percussion? I definitely think Gabby is a talented vocalist, and I think she's got charisma in how she delivers her vocal. The sass comes through on songs like Jesus and My Mama, even on songs like I Hope. But this album definitely ain't it for me. I just find it confusing. Like, I don't feel like I know who she is at the end of this record. Or if I do know who she is, she just has lots of contradictory ideology in how she sees the world. So for that reason, I'm going to give it a yee nah. Then I want to talk about Kyle Nix's debut album, Lightning on the Mountain and Other Short Stories.
And bring Oklahoma to Louisiana.
Kyle Nix is someone that you guys already know from the Turnpike Troubadours. He's best known as the fiddle player for that band, but while they are on hiatus, and we're all hoping that they come back one day, Kyle Nix has made a solo project, which is something that Hugh, in my last Hot Takes video with him, actually said he wanted to happen months before this was ever announced.
I wish they would go start producing other stuff.
So I hope you're happy, Hugh. This is an album that finds Kyle taking center stage as the vocalist of this album, and it's interesting because it's definitely like a twist on the Turnpike Troubadours that we know and love. And I think most of the band is actually involved on this record too. You can hear that kind of comfortable sound with each other. Still, this is a fiddle player's album, and it's definitely got a bluegrassier twist on the kind of blues rock that you might be comfortable with from the Turnpike Troubadours, and I think that's really cool. The title track, Lightning on the Mountain, feels like a relative of The Devil Went Down to Georgia, and it's just like he tears it up on the fiddle there. Other songs like Good Girl Down the Road and Blue Eyes, both of which I love, will really feel like Turnpike to you, but without Evan Felker's voice, and that is like a big difference, you know? I think Kyle Nix is a great songwriter. I think these songs are well structured, but he doesn't have like the same kind of compelling, immediate voice that Evan does. My favorite song on this album is one called Manifesto.
When that saw the Nazis fall in 1945, France.
About him thinking about his grandfather and his father's service in the armed forces and how he doesn't do that. He's kind of looking insecurely at his own contribution to the world, and he's like, my grandpa fought the Nazis. My father fought the Viet Cong. What I do, I play bluegrass and blues. I hope you like it some. There's something really moving about that song, even in its humor, because you're hearing a musician wrestle with their own value add to the world, and you kind of get a storyline of his father telling him, like, you don't have to go fight, like, our family's done its time, and it sort of imbues his music with value. I think that song is absolutely excellent, and I think it is a really good sort of thesis statement for what this record is. It's a mix of bluegrass and blues, and I hope you like it some. I agree with him. I'm giving it a yeehaw. Next is the debut album from the quartet Gone West called Canyons.
Blood on the tracks, sweat on the saddle, fire in the hills.
I talked about Gone West on the channel before. It's a bunch of musicians that came together, the most famous one of which is Colbie Caillat, her now ex, Justin Kawika Young, Nellie Joy, and Jason Reeves. Some of them have been in the country world, some have been in the pop world, but they've come together for this album that definitely feels like a fusion of the two. It's got kind of heartfelt ballads full of harmony, but with like a little bit of Hawaiian influence.
Don't even recognize the truth, you changed into someone who I never knew.
And for the record, I feel like Hawaii and the steel guitar and the kind of bendiness of that sound does not get enough credit in country music. I think this is a good, not great album. The title track has a ton of energy and it feels adventurous and like they're going west.
I've gone west, going down the highway like a tumbleweed.
But except for a few brighter, poppier moments, I think the whole thing can feel a little sleepy and run together. Some of the songwriting on here is excellent. Home is Where the Heartbreak is just a brilliant hook. It's taken that common thing that you've seen needle pointed in every grandma's kitchen, home is where the heart is, and saying like, home is where the heartbreak is, if that's where a big breakup happens. You've got some real breakup songs on this, like I'm Never Getting Over You and Gambling Town, and I think the vocals on this are so pleasant to listen to. It's definitely breezy. I really think Colbie Caillat, her voice, if you like that kind of like smooth, mellow feel, it works nicely here. I just wish there was a little less smoothness. I wish there was some more bite on some of these songs like you get on, I guess it's not the title track, it's like the band title track, Gone West. Still, I mostly enjoyed this record. I just kind of found it hard to find the songs distinct, even after a couple listens. So I'm gonna give it a strong yee. Then we've got a new to me band from the Texas scene called Hill Country.
Does an eagle feel when he's flying?
I heard about Hill Country in a tweet from Luke Combs, who was crediting Saving Country Music for turning him on to Zane Williams years ago. I've never actually listened to Zane Williams, so this is my first experience with him as a lead vocalist and songwriter, but I also love that I'm discovering him in the context of this band because I feel like the harmonies on this are freaking gold. On the song The Eagle, you just get this soaring vocal and a really poignant lyric about the world around you changing and wondering if the bird looking down at the ground feels the same way. The song Dixie Darlin' tells the story of a relationship that's not really working and his pain as he's looking at this girl and they're dealing with an unplanned pregnancy.
Dixie, darling, did you find what you were after? A greener pasture.
You get these lush vocals that are really reminiscent of like Zac Brown Band to me. Or at least early Zac Brown Band. And then there's playfulness on songs like Company Man, which has, I just think, a really cool, shouty counter melody. To me, the production on this is really tasteful. You can hear the guitars, you can hear the banjo, you can hear the harmonies. It never feels overpowered, but sometimes when they need to turn up the energy, they do. When they need to pull back, they do. This music feels really alive. So I'm giving the self-titled album from Hill Country a huge yeehaw. I really, really like it. I think you would too. And then we have Tenille Townes with The Lemonade Stand. Tenille Townes first was on my radar with her song Somebody's Daughter, which was one of my favorites the year it was released. I just thought the songwriting on that track was so different. It was cool to hear a single about looking at a homeless woman and experiencing empathy with her. And then I heard the song Jersey on the Wall. Song that's kind of angry and lamenting the death of a high school student and wondering to God, why did he have to get taken? I think Tenille Townes is a very good songwriter, willing to ask profound questions in her music. And while her voice is probably divisive, because it's definitely reedy, it kind of reminds me a little bit of like a more mainstream Iris DeMent, I personally love it. I'm all here for a different voice. But damn, I did not like The Lemonade Stand, and that bummed me out. I mean, this was a record produced by Jay Joyce, and Jay Joyce, I think, is really good at creating a groove. I think he works really well with rock-influenced musicians. But all the things I don't love about his production always are like maximized and dialed up to 12 on this album. Just blaring percussion and all these synthetic like whoa-whoas in the background of every song, and it just feels chaotic and bad. I'm aware I have a bias against a lot of heavy production, but to me it's burying the uniqueness of Tenille Townes' voice. And I just don't know that the kind of anthemic arena rock feel really works on this album. Truthfully, I only listened through it once, but it was a yee-nah for me. Songwriting, often a big yee-haw, but just ugh. Did y'all feel the same way? And then quickly, let's drop in on Joshua Ray Walker's Glad You Made It.
I didn't know hate could feel this good behind the wheel of a car.
Joshua comes out of the Dallas, Texas scene, and I actually hadn't listened to his first album, Wish You Were Here, although I know many people consider it very buzzy and like this real landmark debut album. But I hadn't listened, I just knew who he was, and he's got a unique look. I mean, he's a huge dude. But I dropped in blind on Glad You Made It, and I really was impressed. This album's a quick listen. It's just like 30 minutes, and you get to hear so much excellent vocal stylings on this album. He yodels, and he's definitely got a fairly high voice that just sounds beautiful. On the song Voices, where he's cleaning out a bottle and then he's kind of like pretending like that was a mistake and he's wrestling with his own internal demons and decisions. I mean, it's just freaking amazing. The whole outro to that song when he's going up in his vocals. But I think he's a cool storyteller too, and the details in his songwriting on something like Boat Show Girl are excellent.
just like every boat show girl wishes that you would.
He's looking at one of these models at a trade show for boats and just realizing she's got bruises on her arms and she's not this happy veneer that she's putting out there to sell boats. Bathed in sequins, a beacon when daddy did you wrong. Fake tan covers bruises, but it doesn't last that long. I love a good detail in a song. I love a good detail in a song. So I give this album a yeehaw, and let's talk about an album with a lot of details next. So now it's time for the album that probably a lot of you guys are here for. I put it last because I'm not stupid. Let's talk about Gaslighter by The Chicks.
How do you sleep at night?
So now they're not called the Dixie Chicks anymore. They're just called The Chicks. There's a million places you can reflect on that. I'm not going to talk about it much in this video because I want to talk about this album. Now, let me just get this out of the way. I hate this cover, even more than I hate the Goldmine cover. I mean, I hate this cover as much as I hate the cover of Luke Combs. And I hate it not just because I think the aesthetics of it are ugly, and I think it would be cool to see these artists that we haven't gotten a new album from in 14 years on the cover, but because it feels like loud and kind of in this like activist color palette and sort of combative in a way that it doesn't match up with this album that I think, while it is combative, is super nuanced, and it's not this like outspoken political statement. This is a divorce record, and I think it's a really good divorce record, or at least a pretty good divorce record. If you were wondering if this album is gonna be a return to country, or are they gonna bring back that Wide Open Spaces sound, they're not. They're done. I mean, they worked with Jack Antonoff on this record. You might know him from Bleachers. You might know him as someone that produces people like Lorde and Taylor Swift. And he has brought his very clean production style to this album as well. But I actually don't think it's some overproduced, super synthesized record. I just think it's a pretty sparse record. If anything, I kind of wish there was more going on. Like, I want the banjo turned up throughout this record. I want way more harmony. I mean, that's something that the Chicks have that's so awesome, is just that big harmony, but this feels a lot more like a solo record for Natalie Maines, and that doesn't mean it's a bad record. It's just there's things about it that make it feel weird to kind of make a comeback, but then really just to feel like a Natalie Maines album. Fortunately, Natalie Maines has a lot to say. This is a woman that speaks her mind, and I know a lot of people hate her for it. I know a lot of people are still thinking about how she feels un-American to them, and that's cool. That's your prerogative to dislike her, but she makes a really good woman scorned on this album, because whatever went down with her ex, Adrian, on her boat, which hilariously is called the Nautilus, she's got a lot to say about it and a lot of reflection on the dissolution of this marriage. We got a taste of that on the track Gaslighter, and I made a whole video about them coming back in Gaslighter if you want to check that out, when she said, "Boy, you know exactly what you did on my boat." And then later on this album, there's a whole song called Tights on My Boat, where she says, "You can tell the girl that left her tights on my boat that she can have you now."
You came to visit on tour and you made me cry. Wouldn't speak to me for weeks and I know why.
She also talks about this alleged affair on songs like Sleep at Night, which I think is a more nuanced and better version of kind of the tone of Gaslighter, because it really gets into the pain, not just the anger. She's still angry at him, but she feels pained. But she talks about him bringing his side chick to their concert at the Hollywood Bowl, and the girl telling Natalie, "I'm such a fan." And then there's an amazing line in that song where she says,
My husband's girlfriend's husband just called me up. How messed up is that?
the forwardness with which she sings about these things is really compelling. I mean, this is a freaking honest record, but it's not just exposing him. It's not just dunking on him. It's also really, really vulnerable. She is a worried mom. She is thinking about her sons on songs like Young Man, and she is worried about how are they going to grow up and not repeat the mistakes of their father. And on other songs like I Hope It's Something Good, which, by the way, couldn't all of the records sounded like that? Those harmonies, it just swells and it's so good.
If you're gone, I hope it's really worth it.
You know, she really does want good for him. She's trying to let go of the pain. And on the final song, Set Me Free, she's like, please just sign the divorce papers. Like, set me free from this storyline. Let me turn the page. I think the album peaks in the beginning of the record. I think it's got so much more pluck. Songs like Gaslighter and Sleep at Night have a lot of energy, and they're hooky and they're catchy. And then Texas Man, I think, is a jam.
But I'm ready.
And that's one of my favorite songs on here. It's kind of the same sentiment as Cowboy Take Me Away. She's just like, look, I'm single, and if you don't mind that I'm some used goods, I'd Like You to Sleep With Me Tonight. But somewhere in the middle of the record, I think it loses a lot of energy, and it's missing that pluck that the Dixie Chicks are so good at. Or sorry, the Chicks, don't cancel me. March March, which is kind of a political song that feels out of place, that's really boring to me. Juliana, Calm Down, that's really boring to me. It just slows down a lot, and I think that keeps the record from being great. It's like if you took the first 3 or 4 songs and the last 2 songs, it would just be this super tight collection. And then maybe we could have some songs where Emily and Marty have a little more to do than just kind of feel like backup for Natalie Maines. So I don't think it's a perfect album, and I don't think it's a country album, but I think it's a super compelling one. And if you like just the firepower in Natalie Maines' voice and that kind of like nasal, a little bit aggressive, funny tone, which I do, and you like some really frank songwriting, you're gonna enjoy this record. It's pretty hard to look away. So I'll give it a light yeehaw, and I'd love to know what you think about it too. So that's it for me, guys. I hope you enjoy some of the music in this video. If you do, give it a like. Let me know your thoughts on some of this stuff down below. There are some albums I've missed. I haven't listened to the Margot Price album or the Jimmy Allen record. Like I said, it is what it is. A bunch more content is coming up soon though, and so yeah, stay tuned.